Welcome to the show, everybody. It's the Crypto Lark. Today I got the chance to sit down with the CEO over at ArcBlock to discuss their upcoming token sale and to discuss their project of building a blockchain ecosystem for building taps. Before we get into all the details of that interview, a quick shout out, as always, to everyone who has been hitting that like button, and of course, everybody who has been subscribing to the channel. If you're not subscribed to the channel yet, make sure you hit that button down below to stay up to date with all of the latest in the crypto space. Furthermore, this is, of course, not professional financial advice. This is just a dude talking about cryptocurrencies on the internet. This is an ICO. Please do your own due diligence before investing your own money, because there is always a certain amount of inherent risk in investing in any ICO. Please know the risks before getting involved. Furthermore, the team at ArcBlock has reached out to me to do a sponsored interview. However, I have, of course, reserved the right to ask all kinds of tough and challenging questions. So let's get into it. Welcome to the show, everybody. Super excited to have with me today Robert Mao. He is the CEO and Chief Architect over at ArcBlock. Welcome, Robert.
Hello, everyone. It's very nice to join this program and communicate about our project. Really excited.
Now, for anybody who hasn't heard about ArcBlock yet, can you tell us the short version? What is ArcBlock?
So ArcBlock is a platform and an ecosystem to help developers to build and deploy decentralized application built on top of the blockchain. So ArcBlock itself is powered by blockchain itself, and we hopefully to use a blockchain to create this kind of a incentive-based ecosystem to encourage all the developers to work together to build a platform that is powered by the community, not controlled by a big company or a big enterprise, big organizations. Yeah. That's our vision.
Awesome, awesome. The promise of decentralization, right? To move the power away from the giant players, basically.
Exactly.
Now, look, there's already a lot of blockchains. There's already a lot of people, doing dApps. How do you propose to improve on what's already there?
Yeah, so today, so basically there's so many different kind of blockchains. So there's quite a few new evidence, new technologies coming out. So from ArcBlock's point of view, we recognize there's a lot of problem today. So it's a great concept, but it's just not ready for the general public or the consumer user yet. From the other hand, we believe in all those talents, right, work on different blockchain technologies. Everybody are trying to solve the problem. So as for ArcBlock, we decided to basically working together with all the major blockchain technologies to work together with them. So instead of building a new blockchain or new protocol, we try to build a computing platform that can work together with as many as possible other blockchain technologies together. So if they're focused on the blockchain protocol itself, and we focus on how to make the developer easier to build and deploy applications. Mm-hmm. It's just a kind of it's a bigger vision that we think we need to work together with everybody.
Okay, fantastic. So essentially, this is kind of, you're working towards blockchain 3.0. Is that correct?
Yes. So we kind of naming ourselves as one part of the blockchain 3.0. So actually, blockchain 1.0, 2.0, 3.0 is not just it's not the concept coined by us. It's a concept that has been around for a while. Usually people think 1.0 blockchain, they're just blockchain that only designed for the cryptocurrencies, such as the Bitcoins. Mm-hmm. Blockchain 2.0 are developed when people try to put applications other than the cryptocurrencies on top of it. So notably, one of the first blockchain 2.0 is Cardcoin, which is my chief scientist Flavian Chalon is one of the biggest players to create the standard and the implementation with the Cardcoins. But the Cardcoin technology itself is not revolutionary enough because it's based on the Bitcoin. It has its own limitations. That's how Ethereum is coming out. So Ethereum is really a revolutionary idea. They build this. They basically allow the code to run on the blockchains. Mm-hmm. So that makes Ethereum a representative blockchain technology today as a 2.0 technology. We all see the problems right now. Recently, what happened to those second generation blockchains? Because essentially, when you try to build application that is useful for consumer users, the general public, it needs to be high performance. It, it, you cannot gas fee for every click. and and also for a full application, you need on-chain and off-chain computing. You need on-chain and off-chain resources working all together. So you basically need something that is more than blockchain itself. So that's how we define the blockchain 3.0, and this is how we step into this market.
And so this is the area where you're stepping into that advancement really on what's already existing. So how at ArcBlock, what are you going to do to make, I guess, the user experience better? We've already got the blockchains out there working, so how are you going to bring in tools that are going to make it better for, I guess, the end user or maybe the developer?
Yeah, so in our white paper, we actually described the overall architect of ArcBlock. Relatively, I think the ArcBlock is a very simple and clear design. So there's a few critical parts. One part is we call open chain access protocol. So this is essentially the abstract layer on top of the blockchains. So this open chain access protocol, the goal is to provide another layers of abstraction so that make the developers much easier to dealing with the blockchain technology. Right? So this part is mostly focused on help the developer experience to be better. Right? So the other core part, which is blocklet, the blocklet is the framework. So it's a microservice framework to help the developers easily to structure the whole applications. So actually, blocklet itself is also mostly focused on improve the developer experience. And here we come the decentralized PubSub gateway. So this is the important part for us to help the consumer users to get it much easier to access the blockchain applications. So essentially, this PubSub gateway help the consumer users to be able to connect their phone or connect the web browsers with a node that is connected to the blockchain, right? In today's blockchain applications, you either have to run a node on your computer, or you at least need to run a light node, such as like MetaMask. So this is not consumer friendly, basically because 99% people will not know how to use it. Right? They don't know how to use it. They don't know how to use it, and the UI is not kind of traditional. It's really tough for them. So with our decentralized PubSub gateway, our goal is to be able to let the consumer users, when they use blockchain, they just feel this is just like a normal application. We believe that great technology should be beautiful and then invisible. Right? It's just like you are using a cell phone. You don't know that there's like LTEs behind. There's tons of TCP/IP protocol are there. You don't even need to know that you're switching between towers. It's just invisible. It just works. So from that part, we wish that in the 3.0 generation blockchain application, it's just invisible for the consumer users. They just know this is something that as easy to use as the traditional applications.
That's great. I think it's really important to see these developments coming forward because, like you said, the blockchain learning curve for a lot of people, even trying to understand what it is difficult. And if you can actually make that user experience seamless where they can hop on, use it, and not even know they're using blockchain, but they are, which is, of course, great. Now, how many transactions per second are we looking at with ArcBlock? What's your scalability going to be?
Yeah, so for the scalability, there's two parts of the ArcBlock. So one part is the blockchain, is a main blockchain that the developer decided to use. So we're not going to actually improve anything on that part. For example, if a developer decided to use Ethereum, if they decide to use Hyperledger, the transaction rate is defined by that blockchain itself. Can still jump into help is the blockchain itself define the frameworks that, for example, when you create this application, it's not necessary everything go down to the blockchain itself. And with this framework, it might be able to have something have some computing off chain before you hit the blockchain. So that probably help the improve the user experience. However, this essentially does not help to for the blockchain the developer they decided to use. From the other hand, ArcBlock have a native token system that is run on top of a very high performance blockchain, but that blockchain is only for the utility tokens and the native tokens that inherit from the ArcBlock. It does not actually. There's no application layers on top of that. So that blockchain has a very high very high transaction rate that we designed.
Very cool. Now, and what about gas fees? I saw that you've got a system where it's the designers who end up paying the gas fees, not the end users. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, so this is something that we think is really important for the end user experience, because the gas fee, honestly, for myself, the first time when I heard about the gas fee and I need to pay the gas fee for any kind of transaction in the Ethereum, it actually bothered me myself. when either become very expensive, it's definitely going to be a trouble for the end users who need to pay the gas fee. So in our ArcBlock design, we instead of let the consumer pay it, we decide to let the developers who run the application pay it. So this is actually pretty typical, right? For example, today, even you are not developing for a developer, even they're not developing anything that related to the blockchain. Let's say, for example, they're hosting a game on the AWS, right? So the game is free. Users are using the game for free, but the developer is actually still paying the AWS the cost of the running the servers, the network. Is actually something that developers has been dealing with for many years. So I think this is introducing the way to let the developers pay the gas fee instead of let the end user do it. I think this is just typical and easy to understand for the developer from a developer point of view. And it's also helped the consumers get it much easier. And I think that for the developers, they need to focus on creating valuable service that make the consumer users really willing to pay them, instead of let them pay for every click or every actions.
Very cool, very interesting. I guess the concept is a nice little flip around, because that's one thing I thought, with basically cryptocurrencies, it's nice for a merchant, for example, to accept, Litecoin, for example, but, I still have to pay to send the Litecoin transaction, whereas before he would have to pay the credit card company, right? So I guess this kind of turns that model back around a little bit. Now, what do you have in place to stop attacks, basically, on the network? How do you prevent that? What are you doing to work on that?
Yeah, so those kind of attacks. So basically, in today's blockchain, because everybody can run a node, right? So when you have these transactions, so basically the transaction is broadcasted to make some kind of miners to generate that in the blocks. So that basically opened the opportunity for the attackers to generate this kind of a large volume of the invalid or kind of this kind of transactions to kind of block the whole system. So in our new design, so basically we kind of close up this part for consumer users or for just a kind of a hacking or just a testing users. Because everybody who be able to broadcast this kind of transactions, they have to be serious players in the network. And we haven't announced in the white paper yet. And actually, this is a part that we're still figuring out what's the right thing to do. Is for people who are going to run the serious service on the platform, they might have to put down some part of the ABT to make sure they're not doing bad things.
Put a security deposit up, essentially.
It's not finalized yet. We're thinking what's the best model, what's the right thing to do. So basically, for example, in AWS, you could run you could use AWS and run an attacking system there, but then you will quickly get shut down because you're doing bad things, right? I think this is just a similar model. So that is basically, I think in the cloud computing world, the expert and the engineers have thought about this kind of dealing with this kind of situation for many, many years. And this is, we just kind of learn from them and apply for here.
Okay, very cool. Now, you're also going to be setting up a marketplace within your ecosystem. What's that marketplace going to look like? What am I going to find there?
Yeah, so I think the marketplace for the computing resources and the component is a critical part for our design, because this is actually something that set us apart from the old world that a computing platform is building by and then controlled by one company. And it's also, I think, it's also an improvement for the community who build application, build components, which they can only either make it a commercial software or components or open source, right? So the commercial model and the open source model, they each have each have this advantage and the problems. I think that the major problem that we see is there's no good incentive model, and there's no incentive mechanism to reward the people who create great value. And so the value is always captured. It is a long tail, but the value is always captured by the head part. I think the great part of the blockchain is you can create a public ledger that have a relatively fair incentive model. That you know the benefit is captured not only by the head part of the long tail, but also by the huge part of the long tail part. So that will encourage people to try to contribute what they can contribute. And also the reputation in this kind of marketplace is also important. Who are the great developers, who can create great components, whose code has higher quality. It's basically, it's all in public ledger, it's all on the chains, right? And the vote your code, not just by start it or like it, instead they vote by they really use it. So this is something that we see. If we can get this whole ecosystem working, I think this is actually the single most important part for the ArcBlock. Even though right now in the white paper, this is still yet to be completed and finished. Because basically we have to first build the platform first and get it running, and then we kind of shift the focus into this ecosystem.
Okay.
This is that we're going to, really focus on in the future.
Very cool. I like it. Now, you guys are bringing in something called cloud nodes. So what is a cloud node? Is it safe? And is it really a decentralized service to have a cloud node?
Yeah. I think the cloud node is something, it's kind of an invention that we're trying to build. And we actually, our own team, we have this kind of debate and consideration to think about it. So what cloud node really means, what the people will think cloud node it is. But eventually we think, first of all, what is a computer, right? Today's computer, for example, my box. I'm sitting on top, in front of a box, which is a MacBook. It contains everything is in the box. We think this is a computer. But many years ago, when I first get introduced to the computer, so a big computer is actually a whole giant house of different many boxes that they connect together. Right? So today, I think from some point of view, we can just think the cloud is actually just one computer. Right? The AWS, you can regarding the whole AWS is actually just one giant computer that you can use, everybody can use, right? And be able to build a new node on top of those cloud computing resources. I think it's not necessary to say, hey, I really want to build on top of a physical machine or a virtual machine. Instead, we can actually compose many different services together and treat all those services together. We think that's it logically. It's a logical computer. And then we do things on top of the computer. In the computer science, there's a joke, or there's a saying that you can always add a new abstract layers to solve a problem, which is pretty true, right? I think today is a day that the cloud computing is become so kind of mature that you can treat that as something that you can build another layer on top of it. So that's how we decided. The other part of the centralization, I think I really want to share this concept that we think what is decentralized and what is centralized, right? So imagine there's a bank today. There's a bank today. They're building a system for their bank, right? They can use a distributed system. They can distribute the database across many different data centers. They can even use AWS and Azure's and their own infrastructures all together to build a really decentralized and distributed system. And from the engineering point of view, it's completely decentralized. And however, it's still controlled by one bank. So is this system a decentralized system or it's a centralized system? It really depends on how you look at it. Right? If you look at it from an engineering point of view, it's decentralized. But if you look at who control it, it is a centralized. Right? So from the ArcBlock, we decided to we think what decentralization means. The decentralization means the system is not controlled by one dominated party. It's not about if the system is using uniform or kind of a uniform framework, or kind of like from a centralized point of view, the centralized design, right? And actually, if you look at the Ethereum, it is same, right? Every Ethereum nodes are running Ethereum. It is very much centralized from the engineering point of view. However, there's no party can control Ethereum and can do whatever they want. So from that point, it is decentralized. So that's how we look, and that's why we this is something that we are kind of looking for.
Okay, great. Now, how will ArcBlock be using smart contracts? Will you be leveraging the power of oracles, for example, as well?
Yeah, so the blocklet itself has an interesting design. So blocklet itself is a Microsoft service architect, and it's not a typical the smart contract oracles implemented with ArcBlock is not kind of apple to orange. It's not apple to apple compare with the EVM. We think the EVM has its unique design, or anything like similar to the EVM design has a unique design. It can fit. There's some kind of user scenarios that you really need that kind of model. However, for a blockchain application, not every contract, not every oracle need to be, especially for the oracles. It's not necessary everything need to be in that. So that's how so the blocklet is kind of like realistic design. So if you have an application that you really need to have some deterministic code, we suggest you implement that with the EVM, with a traditional smart contract on top of Ethereum or some other blockchains. However, if you have something that is a lot of input source that from external data source, you probably don't need to put everything into that, into the blockchain itself. You can use a blocklet to do that. So which part to put is actually totally dependent on the developers to decide. We just as a reference application mode framework that gives some kind of a reference what to put.
Okay, very interesting. Now, who do you imagine using ArcBlock, and I guess what are the use cases of ArcBlock?
So ArcBlock itself is designed for the developers. So right now we already have a few developer and partners that are lined up and going to use ArcBlock to develop their applications. So right now the first batch of our customers, they are mostly some traditional companies. They want to leverage the blockchain's power to make their traditional business better. So actually, there's quite a few blockchain application teams that are interested with us. We just don't have the bandwidth to help them at this time. But eventually, we wish we become a better platform for anybody who tries to use that. That blockchain is a key part of that.
I think there's going to be so many businesses really moving into this space, and I think we're seeing this every day. More and more businesses are finding out what blockchain is, what it can do for their companies, and they're becoming interested. So definitely, the use case potential is very big as far as, onboarding customers as you move forward to the future. And I envisage a future where nearly every business will be using blockchain in some way or another. Now, you're using something called Algorand. What is Algorand?
So Algorand is an algorithm. Essentially, we think we started from something we call the proof of randomness, right? So the POW, like in the Bitcoins, is consumed a lot of electricity and resources. And it is actually, I think it's a brilliant idea that designed for a blockchain that is related to finance and the cryptocurrencies. However, when you move to use the blockchain as application platform, so that is a huge problem that we have already seen today. Like Ethereum is also planning to move from a POW to POS. From the computer science point of view, my understanding from a computer science point of view, the POW essentially it is a proof of randomness. It's just to use the workload to make sure it is random enough. So when our engineer is researching on this, we try to find a better algorithm to make sure the system is secure and also make sure that the speed to form the consensus can be fast enough. We figure out this kind of proof of randomness idea, and then we did a lot of research on the papers that published, and we find our algorithm is related with a very new algorithm that by MIT and by an awesome computer scientist. And we instantly think this is a very similar idea that we have before. And so that's why we're actually right now we're trying to adopt that algorithm into the system. The problem is that it's a very new algorithm, so there's no it's not proving in any real user scenario yet. So right now we're still experimenting the system, and also algorithm itself. It's just it is still a framework of the whole idea. They didn't release the detail and the code yet, and so it's sort of an algorithm, but maybe at the end of the day, it's just some very similar idea, but not exactly the same algorithm.
Okay, very interesting. Now, I want to talk about the token. So what is the exact function of the token in your ecosystem? And maybe can I develop my own token on your blockchain? Is that something that's also possible?
Yeah, so our token ABT is a very typical utility token. So the only usage for the ABT is to use the ABT to get the service from the ArcBlock. And the other part of the usage is when you're contributing resources to the ArcBlock, you get rewarded with that ABT. So ABT is a typical and a simple utility token. And this kind of a token is also kind of a common, it's also common to see in the cloud computing platform. They just call it credit. For example, AWS, you have AWS credits, and Windows Azure has the same thing. But the major difference is they're a credit that is probably just something that they build in our own database. But the ArcBlock, we build a blockchain to kind of make this a public ledger for the credits. So that's basically helped our partners to form the trust that this is not something that anybody can issue at any time. But for the ABT itself, it's just a utility token for the platform itself. From the other point of view, we believe for all those kind of applications they run on top of the ArcBlock, they might need their own token system. So today's ERC20 is a great example that a platform can kind of define this kind of simple interface, so everybody can implement the token super easily, right? So when you look at the Color Coin, essentially Color Coin is actually building a token on top of the Bitcoin blockchain. Right?
This ICO is incredibly popular. There's a massive amount of people who have subscribed for the whitelist. I think there's been 100,000 plus applications for KYC, which is massive. What are your plans on keeping this fair, on keeping it so that whales don't buy all the tokens? Will there be caps, gas limits, anything like this?
Yeah, so actually, because the project becomes so popular, so there are so many people want to back on us. So that actually give us the ability to avoid the big whales even better. So in our token sale, so right now it's a private token sale is closed. There's no big whale at all. Nobody can. Um, we don't the allocation itself is try to be as decentralized as possible, as there's no big whale be able to get the allocations at all.
Mm-hmm.
So in the last couple of weeks, so constantly I kind of get the emails or the phone calls. You know, there are people saying, "Hey, I want to invest a couple of millions," and I typically say, "Oh, thank you, thanks a lot for supporting. However, you can only participate at most 200 ETH."
Mm-hmm.
And there's a few very high profile people and a very high profile investment venture capitals. We basically tell them the same story. And when we pick the people who can participate, um, other than the KYC, which is mandatory, we need to pass, we put the developers at the highest priority. So if you are developers, if you are development teams, we treat them much higher than a top tier venture capital. So that's the way we did it.
Very interesting.
Yeah, for the future, for the public sale, we're going to announce that we're not encouraged the gas walls. So we're going to announce in the community, whoever tried to put the gas that is way over the limit we suggested, we're going to we're going to refund their investment. Seriously.
Very great. Great, but that's great. This is I think that needs to happen in the space. There has to be gas limits, otherwise it gets crazy. It really does. So there'll be a gas limit. And what's the maximum contribution going to be for during the public sale? Have you figured that out yet?
On the web, we originally decided is maximum is 5 ETH. However, I have a bad news for the community because there are so many people want to participate, and we want to more people have the opportunity to participate. So we might reduce the max cap a little bit. So right now, I think that our community leaders are doing a voting
Mm-hmm.
in the community, and we want to listen to the community to think what is the ideal cap. I think definitely we're going to reduce a little bit to make more people have the chance to participate. And I also wish the community can understand us, because we want more people to have the chance to participate. So we have to reduce the cap a little bit.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's a tough one. It really is, and we're seeing this a lot with ICOs now. But to be honest, I would rather have it be fair like that than for whales to come in and buy everything up. And if it had 5 was already a fairly low number, and if it goes down to 2 or something like that, well, you're actually being fair. And I know some people don't like fairness in that way. They want to be able to buy 5 or 10 or 20 so that they can get their own. But I think it actually works better what you're doing, where everyone will have a fair chance to get some. And so good. I like it. I know that may not be popular with everybody, but I think it's probably the fairest way you can do it, and I think it's really important to be fair in these situations. Now, I wanted to move on to some of your partnerships and relationships with your company. So I see that you have a relationship with CyberMiles. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, CyberMile is a blockchain that is trying to build for the smart contract template for the e-commerce. So we think in the future that all those applications built on top of blockchain, I think the e-commerce is strategically important. So that's why we build a strategic relationship with CyberMiles, and actually in this token sale, we even accept some of the participators to use the CMP and with our token sale. Yeah.
Very cool. Now, there has been a lot of FUD around specifically your relationship with IBM and with SAP. Can you tell me what is the relationship with those two companies?
So from very early on, we started to establish a business partnership with IBM and SAP. IBM is so Hyperledger. Everybody knows Hyperledger is the second blockchain protocol we plan to support for the open chain access protocol. And the Hashflare project is started by IBM and then contributed to the open source communities. So right now, to run the Hashflare, the easiest way is still with IBM Cloud. So from very early on, we decided to try to establish the partnership with IBM. So we immediately joined the IBM Partner World program, and we become one of the partner of the IBM Cloud, and we also in the progress to become the IBM blockchain partnership program. So we definitely so this IBM is a big company, so they have a very long process and also very standard process for any company who wants to establish a partnership with them. So we just follow the process to starting from very small. And yeah, so in some community, people are complaining why IBM didn't have a press release on us, why we don't have like a solution white papers on their website. All I can say is we're coming soon. We're just a very small startup. We just get started, but we just build this kind of relationship step by steps. Similar as SAP, they have this blockchain co-innovators initiatives that started last year. They also have the SAP's blockchain partner preview program, and we participate into this from very early on. So yeah, so that's also something that we're working with it.
Okay, great. Now, I see you also have a partnership with Bbox. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Bbox and also the EtherDelta. So they're exchanges. So we believe that exchanges are critical, especially decentralized exchanges. They are extremely important in the future. And also the exchanges. So a lot of exchanges are centralized, so they're completely centralized. There's another few decentralized exchanges. Their user experience terrible, and we think it's strategically important for us to partnership with them, to use our technology to make them to have better user experience, and we also could potentially partnership with them to include some of the exchange features as a part of the platform, so that another applications could actually have the exchange features into their apps. So that's why we're trying to build a partnership with them. So actually, that is only two we announced. There's going to be more coming soon.
So you're working with Bbox and with EtherDelta as well. Was that correct?
That's correct.
So what you're telling me is you guys are going to be working on making the EtherDelta user experience better.
Yes, that's the goal.
Yes, that's great. Because certainly EtherDelta does lack a bit in that space, without a doubt. Now, I see that you've got you're part of the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, I didn't see you listed on their website yet. So what's going on there?
Yeah, so we are members of the Ethereum Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. We're also a member of Linux Foundation and Hashflare Foundations, and we joined them from very early on. And they also have this kind of they also have this kind of suggestions that do not wish the member companies to use the partnership with them during the ICO. With that, so basically they're going to announce us, and after we finish the public sale.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I think I imagine a lot of these companies to say, well, we don't want to get into the speculation process during ICOs. Now, the guys over at CripAtal, what is the relationship between CripAtal and ArcBlock? Are you guys one and the same company, or are they doing your media? What's going on there?
Yeah, CripAtal is a very helpful consent process. So they basically help us for the community management, the marketing, and they are very experienced. They're a small team, but very experienced in the crypto and marketing and all those kind of public relationship related fields. And ArcBlock is a nerd team. So we are all engineers and we're nerds, and help how we can dealing with all those kind of relationship, smoothly. And I think they're strategically really important for us. And I believe that, in the future for any other engineering focused team when they need help, I think they definitely need to find a team like this to help them.
Very cool. I think it's an important thing to admit to. Like, hey guys, look, we're nerds. We get it. We're gonna hire somebody else to do the PR because they're gonna do it better. That's fine. Now, speaking of public relations, on your website there were listed lots of different articles from, HuffPost or whatever, and some of those weren't existent at the time that you listed them on your website. Tell me a bit about what happened there.
I think I should apologize for that. So if we can do that again, so we definitely will not list before the article is is coming out, and because that's created a lot of confusions. But the fact is, we signed a contract with a bunch of medias for the long-term media partnerships, and anybody who lists there, even though there's no articles out there, but we already have a contract signed and sealed beforehand. And yeah, so and also you see that we didn't list all those media that have published the articles for us, because so there are tons of media that actually posted and reported about us. We just put that as a media partnership because we kind of have a long-term relationship with them, and we have the contract with them. Yeah, I'm really sorry for that created some confusions, and but that is we could do that better. But this already happened.
That's true. That's true. That no use crying over spilt milk, I suppose. And for any interested parties, I think quite a few of those articles have now been printed. So if you did want to read some of those articles, I think was it the Huffington Post? They've already published their article, and a couple of the others have as well. So you can go read those now if you want. That message to the community there. Now, I wanted to talk about your competition. Now, obviously, what you're building can work with lots of different blockchains, but who do you see as being your biggest competition? I mean, what about the old guys at Arc? Not ArcBlock, but Arc, of course, or EOS, or is it Cardano, or is it Qtum, or is Ethereum itself a threat to you or competition to you? So what do you see?
I think right now in the blockchain industry, I think the great thing is it's like the Wild West. So even though you see there are a lot of players and quite a few players have the same very similar target, but actually it's pretty empty space. So you can just step in and you can do you can do a lot of things that without have to compete with others. So if we really want to describe, there's competitors, or there's a few projects that have a very similar goal that we have. Like for example, EOS is one of them. They have a very high profile project. They try to solve very similar problem that we try to solve. But we just try to do things. Each of the different projects, we just try to do things differently. For example, EOS, they try to build their own public chain, and they try to solve that with a better public chain, its own ecosystem. And we try to, instead we try to build a computing platform that cooperate with many different blockchains. And so our goal is the same, but we just choose a different path. It's hard to say which one is better, but the best thing is today in the blockchain industry, there are just wide open spaces. I really like one of the books that is written here in the Silicon Valley, that is From Zero to One. And Peter Thiel said is competition is for losers. So right now in the blockchain, there's no losers, because they're just wide open, and you have a great idea, you have great talent, you just straight work on it. You don't need to worry about who to compete with, because it's just something that we can all devote our time and energy to make it happen.
That's an interesting point. There is so much room for so many people in the space, and I think people in the blockchain space tend to forget that. They say, well, there's one company doing energy on the blockchain, so there's no more, there'll be no more ever. Like, actually, think about the real world. There's thousands of mobile phone companies, there's thousands of energy suppliers, there's thousands of people out there writing software, and on and on and on and on and on. There's massive demand for this, and the demand is at this point unmet. Now,
yes, so in
go
the
ahead.
future, I believe in the future, the competition definitely going to happen. But right now, it's just the Wild West age.
If I go to the GitHub today, what am I going to find there?
Yeah, right now in the GitHub, we didn't publish too much stuff yet. So our plan is we are going to publish the open chain access protocol and its implementations and reference implementations after we reach the RC1 stage.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to get there. It's not there yet.
Will this be an open source project then, moving forward?
The open chain access protocol itself, we're going to be open source, and the goal and the longer term goal is we're trying to contribute that into open source organizations, and then eventually it's not just belong to us, right? It's just something like the Hyperledger. But for the whole ArcBlock itself is not open sourced. It's not an open source project, and we're kind of in our own team. We're debating on what kind of model to choose.
Mm-hmm.
So we did quite a few things. We think. First of all, I think the open source is critically important for some key components like the protocol, like the framework architect, because that makes people trust that this is something that you can depend on.
Mm-hmm.
From the other point of view, if you open source everything, that gives the opportunity for those teams who just want to take advantage of the open source to quickly create these forks. Look at all those forks on the Bitcoins, and it's just create a mess, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's the open source part of the core components, and the open source the reference implementations that give the team that with the great capability, because they don't need to steal your code, they don't need to read your code. They can just based on this, they can build their own, even a better solution that join the whole platform. But that definitely become a huge barrier for those teams that only depends on kind of modify a few parameters to create their own forks, you just basically block them. So that's actually, we try to find this balance. So that's how we decided to kind of open source the part of the component, but not the whole project.
Okay, great. Now, I want to move on and talk a little bit about the roadmap here. So when are we going to see a working product for ArcBlock, and then what do we have to look forward to on the roadmap moving forward?
Yeah, so our plan is we're going to have the first few applications, which is kind of a built by our partners, running on the second quarter of this year. That's just a couple months away. And the first batch of the applications going to be related to the educations. And we have a few partners that line up. We're going to probably, after the second quarter, we're going to have new partner applications on our platform every few months or weeks. And so that's a goal.
Okay, good. Now, I want to talk about you and the team, I guess, specifically. So what is the experience that you're bringing that's going to, make this project a success?
So I'm a long-time serious entrepreneur. So back in the day, I actually, after I graduated from the university, I briefly worked for China Telecom for a very short period of time, and then I started my own company. And I eventually in China started three kind of software and internet companies. And some of the company was pretty successful in China, and some of them are not that successful. And
that's being an entrepreneur, though. Not everything will stick.
Yes, exactly. But I keep building interesting and cool new stuff. And after the exit of one of the startups, I decided to join Microsoft in Europe. So basically, I just want to switch my mind to kind of jump from the startup world to understand how those big companies works. So that turned out to be one of the very valuable investment for myself, because in Microsoft Europe team, I met my current chief scientist, Flavia Chalem. Actually, we joined the team about the same time. During the time, we worked in some interesting projects within Microsoft, and eventually I moved to Microsoft Research and become a researcher. And specifically, I'm focused on the social computing and machine learning, and published a bunch of papers, and completely become a researcher, and not working on the startup for a few years. And then out of this, my past background experience, I think this is really helpful because I have experience that build success and failed companies. I learned the lesson from the small companies and big companies, and I built up my experience within China, Europe, and the United States. And I was speakers in those kind of business conferences. I'm also the speaker in the academic conference. Right? So I was interviewed by the business magazines. I also write the papers to publish in this conference and journals by myself. So that's actually given me a very balanced and rich experience on many different aspects for me to build these new ventures. So yeah, I think this is really helpful. So far, the project runs pretty smoothly, and not only from the engineering point of view, but also from the marketing partners, everything I think is just works pretty nicely. I think that is a benefit that I basically spent all those years to dealing different kind of things.
Okay, cool. Now I want to talk about the team as well. So obviously, it's an international team like all great tech projects, but how many people are actually working full time developing ArcBlock?
So before we start the ICO process, we have around 10 people work full time, completely on the engineering side. Recently, our team is increasing pretty fast. So right now we have over 30 people working on the project now, and we are trying to hiring aggressively. So we plan to have a 25 people engineering team in Seattle. And we also plan to have around a little bit smaller, around 10 to 15 people in Dublin, Ireland. We also planning to build a 50 engineering team in Shanghai. So that's the three major sites we're planning to have the people to work on. And yeah, so if anybody who is interested in joining us, send us a resume, and we are really need good engineers to join. Yeah.
Great. So what positions specifically are you looking to hire? What kind of developers do you need?
So right now, the position that is urgent is a manager role, is an engineering manager role. So because so far I'm the architect and I'm actually leading a small team. So we have a lot of engineers that are interested in joining us. But I think the people management, especially the engineering management, has become critically important for us to be able to scale up the teams. So right now, most of those resumes, they're engineers, and we badly needed managers to join. And so basically, if I can find a great manager to join, I think so I will get exhausted.
Very cool. Now, what about your advisors? What exactly are the advisors doing for you? What areas are the advisors advising on?
Yeah, so we have a pretty nice advisors team announced, and actually we have a few more high-profile advisors are coming soon. We have not yet announced yet. So first of all, I would say none of our advisors are the ICO advisors. So we get them as advisors to advise for the project, not advise for the token sale. So zero of them. So everybody needs to bring on the table some kind of experience and be able to help us on the long run. Right? As you can see, we have strategically we strategically line up like the founders and the CEO of NetEase, which is a self-made billionaires in China, and we also have we also have Sao. He's a founder of PattyNet, which is a pioneer in the GPS and the location maps related stuff, and he's also working on the auto driving related technology. And we are also going to announce another new advisory board, which all consists of the professors in the blockchain and in the related industries, research field. So we seriously want to build up an advisory team that help us, help us to make sure the project is in a good shape.
Very cool. Now, I want to talk a little bit, I guess, about some final details about the sale here. So, there was a private sale, correct? And during that private sale, 25,000 Ethereum was raised.
Right.
And now there's 12,500 Ethereum worth of tokens for sale during the public sale. So, what kind of a discount was offered during the private sale? Were people getting a 20, 30, 100% discount?
8%.
80% discount. So there's
Eight, not
8%.
8.
8%. Oh, that's a very
So
small discount.
it's probably one of the lowest discounts ever seen in the market.
That is a pretty small discount. So that when I hear that, I think there's not going to be that giant sell pressure, because I know some ICOs do offer like 100% discount to the private sale investors. So 8%, yeah, you're right. That is actually quite a small discount.
Yeah, it's pretty tough decision when we decided this, because we think first of all, we want to thank and encourage people to help us. From the other hand, we definitely want to make this decentralized, and we hate the people who try to just dump and hurt the others who kind of believe in the project. So we eventually decided, okay, we just give a really, really small discount, and if you believe in the project, and it's good, come support us, and we give, this is the reward. And if you don't believe in, if you want to just take advantage of this tokens private sale, just don't participate. So that's because we are a nerd engineering team. We just make it super simple for us. Yeah.
Very cool. Now, so 45% is going for the sale, 32% will be reserved for community rewards later on, 8% marketing, 15% to the team. Now that 15% that's going to the team, is that going to be on a lockup period, and is that lockup period going to be enforced by smart contracts?
So the team part, we're going to implement something that is similar to the any venture capital based called restricted stock or the stock option plans. So we're going to adopt this called a 4-year vesting period, and have a 1-year cliff, which is kind of is 1 year you cannot do anything, and then after 1 year it's vested by time over the 4 years. And we're going to issue the tokens to the teams gradually. So it's basically, it's not say you have the reward and then you're done. So it's going to release slowly, and so that's make sure it's so-called golden cost, right? So you keep reward the team, but you don't want people just to get cashed out immediately. And so right now, unfortunately, there's we did some research on how to do this right. So right now we didn't find a great solution like a simple smart contract can do this perfectly. So right now we're still looking for the best solution. So we know that there's communities, that are people in the community talking about, how do you control this? And so basically right now our standard answer is this is a promise that we promise to have. But the best implementations, we if anybody know there's a good way for us to control this, we would happy to learn and implement this.
Okay, interesting. I know that some other ICO projects have actually done it by simple paper, legal contract, I suppose. So that has, of course, been a tool that's been used forever. So maybe that's implementation, or, of course, the right smart contract that you might want to find. Now, how many ArcBlock will I get for 1 Ethereum during the public sale?
I think that's on the website.
Okay. Safest to refer to the exact number listed there. Now, question for you, though. How long are we going to have to wait after the sale for the tokens to be released? Are they going to be immediate after the sale, or is it going to be 6 months, a year? How long are we going to wait to see those tokens hit the wallets?
We're going to, the promise is going to be in 30 days, but we are stretched to go, and actually from tomorrow we're going to get everybody in the team in a dedicated hotel room, hotel space, and we're going to work around the clock to make sure that we send out those tokens correctly and as soon as possible. Yeah.
Okay, very
It's
cool.
actually the first time for our team, for many of our team members, to work under the same roof.
Now, as far as the sale itself, I was reading something that there's going to be unique addresses for each person. Is that true?
Yes. So we didn't use a smart contract for everybody to send the Ether to one address. So that's the kind of thing that we did some research, and eventually we decided to give each of the participate one individual address. So it's for a number of reasons. First of all, it's the security, and so there's in the history there are people that use one address, and then that address get hacked or get misused, and so that caused the loss for the people who participate. And right now it's just one for each person, so it's much harder. the second is a gas wall. To be able to, because right now in the Ethereum, in theory, there's no way for you to stop people to start a gas wall. So right now for us, there's still people could be, use a huge gas to immediately, send the ethers, but then we will very easily to refund them because of design.
So you'll be able to refund the people, but there's not a smart contract governing that. How have you set up that limit?
So we will have to run some code after that to figure out for each of the address how much fund they send in and how much gas they used, and did they kind of break the rules. Yeah.
Okay, and for somebody, I guess, looking in from the outside, since you are using all these different addresses, I guess, will there be a post-ICO audit? I mean, how can we as investors know that, 12,500 Ethereum was actually raised if it's all spread across different addresses?
Yes, we hired third-party firms called Clark Raymond. So it's a Seattle-based CPA firms, and try to do an audit and for the whole token sale event.
Okay, great. Now, final question for you here. If somebody wants to get more information, if they want to reach out, if they want to get any more questions answered, how can they do that? How can they become part of the community? How can they get involved?
They can join our Telegram channels. It's at ArcBlock and in Telegram. It's a very big community right now. I think we already reached the 50K cap. Fortunately, they just raised the limit so we can hold more people. And we have a very dedicated community team and volunteers. We try to answer the question as fast as possible.
Very cool. So anyone who wants to reach out, go check out the Telegram, guys. Fantastic. Okay, Robert, I think we're going to finish up there for today. I think we got through a great range of questions, addressed, I think, a lot of the main ideas around ArcBlock. So thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us today. I wish you all the best for the sale moving forward, that everything goes nice and smoothly. So thank you so much for taking your time.
Thanks a lot for the interview. And yeah, it's a very nice talk to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.